Everybody can hear us and can see the screen that we are sharing okay. If folks trickle in later, don't worry, the session will be recorded and shared if you miss anything. So to get started, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Lauren Lambert, and I'm a senior planner with BNA, representing Canopy Lands and Chickadan's West. I'm pleased to be here alongside my colleagues, Tiffany Diebold and Kathy Oberg from BNA, as well as Asad Niazi from Canopy Lands / Chickadan's West. We appreciate your time very much and look forward to engaging with you this evening. This information session is being recorded and will be posted to the project website after we conclude this evening. The session will begin with a 10-minute presentation followed by a question and answer period. We kindly ask that all questions and comments be submitted through the Q&A function, which is in the center of the bar at the bottom of your screen. Although if you have any difficulty with that format, please virtually raise your hand and we will unmute you, allowing your question to be asked verbally. You can submit questions at any time during the presentation. Following the presentation, Tiffany will facilitate the discussion by presenting your questions to our team. And lastly, we ask that everyone in attendance today maintain a respectful and courteous environment for all participants, and we thank you for your cooperation. As a team, we have carefully reviewed all the letters submitted regarding our application and want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to share your feedback. We have identified several common themes from your responses, which we aim to address during our presentation today. These key themes include concerns about increasing density or the number of homes, impacts to traffic and road conditions, fire safety concerns, and questions related to infrastructure services, particularly water and wastewater. To provide some context, we'd like to begin with a brief overview of the guiding policy for this area. The primary policy document for Cochrane Lake Hamlet is the Cochrane Lake Hamlet Plan, which was approved by Rocky View County Council in 2011. This plan is a statutory bylaw, formerly known as an Area Structure Plan, or ASP. Its purpose is to establish long-term planning direction, including general land use, open space, density, transportation servicing, and infrastructure servicing guidelines. The Hamlet Plan outlines several future neighborhoods, including Neighborhood C, which was envisioned as a developed residential community. It can be seen in the dashed red boundary in the map on your screen. The plan specifies that Neighborhood C should include open spaces, a variety of housing options, and a minimum of 620 houses. Before any construction can begin on lands within the Hamlet Plan, a conceptual scheme must be created to provide detailed guidelines for development. For Neighborhood C, the Cochrane Lake Hamlet Plan Neighborhood C Conceptual Scheme, quite a mouthful of a name, was approved by Rocky View County Council in February of 2024. This document acts as a roadmap for how Neighborhood C will be developed through the stages of subdivision and construction. The conceptual scheme sets a clear limit on density, allowing a maximum of 646 units or homes. This maximum will not be changed as a result of our application. To support this plan, several studies were completed, including a transportation impact assessment that identified the necessary road upgrades to handle the development. The plan also outlines how essential services like water, wastewater, and stormwater will be managed. When the conceptual scheme was approved, the land use or zoning was also accepted to match the plan, ensuring alignment with the established framework. Both the Hamlet Plan and conceptual scheme can be found on the Rocky View County website or our project website. Here is the approved land use concept, which you can find on page 20 of the conceptual scheme. The plan includes 2 residential land use districts. Our mid in the brighter yellow is a land use located to the interior of the plan area. It allows for single detached homes, duplexes, and row homes as permitted housing types. R small in the pale yellow is located along the outer edges of the plan area. It allows for single detached homes or duplexes on larger lots. The R small designation was specifically applied to the edges of the plan area to create a lower density, more spacious feel that transitions smoothly to surrounding lands. This approach ensures a more appropriate interface with neighboring properties. The conceptual scheme also includes several policies to reinforce and maintain this design intent. Both the R small and R mid land use districts in the Rocky View County Land Use Bylaw include minimum side yard setback requirements for each parcel. According to the bylaw, for parcels without a lane or those with front drive access, the side yard setback must be 3 meters on one side and 1.5 meters on the other side, as can be seen highlighted in yellow on your screen. Our application proposes an amendment to allow for 1.5 meter side yard setbacks on both sides for parcels with front drive access. To implement this change, the county recommended adding a clause to the exceptions section of both the R small and R mid districts. This clause would specifically allow 1.5 meter setbacks on both sides for front drive residential lots within the Cochrane Lake Neighborhood C area, as noted in the red writing. This approach ensures that the amendment is limited to R lands and does not apply to other areas in the R small or R mid designations. Similar amendments have been adopted in communities such as Langdon and the Balzac area. To help explain the effects of this proposed amendment, we've created several figures showing what potential development could look like in the Neighborhood C area. At the subdivision stage, the size and number of parcels will be determined by the rules in the land use bylaw and conceptual scheme. The land use bylaw sets the minimum parcel dimensions, and the conceptual scheme sets the maximum number of parcels or units allowed. Our proposed amendment will not change these rules or affect the subdivision stage. This means that the overall density and parcel sizes within the plan area will remain the same regardless of the application. The proposed amendment would take effect during the building stage when the size and placement of the house on each lot are determined. In this example, we've illustrated what development would look like under the current regulations of the land use bylaw. Each home would have a 1.5 meter setback on one side and a 3 meter setback on the other side. This reflects the existing rules for parcels without a rear lane or with front drive access. With our proposed amendment, the setback on one side of the home would decrease from 3 meters to 1.5 meters, matching the 1.5 meter setback already required on the other side. This change allows homes to utilize more of the lot's width, making the overall building slightly wider. The extra space gained from reducing the setback would provide more flexibility for home design, enabling developers to create homes with larger interior layouts or additional design options. However, this amendment will not increase the overall number of lots or change the overall number of parcels, as those are still governed by the existing policies in the land use bylaw and conceptual scheme. Here's a side-by-side comparison of what development would look like under the current land use bylaw regulations versus with our proposed amendment. While the width of each home increases slightly with the amendment, the number of units and size of parcels remains the same in both scenarios. The purpose of this proposed amendment is to allow for the development of a slightly wider home with additional garage space and more design options, which we know is a preference in the current market. Importantly, the total number of homes will remain unchanged and all policies outlined in the conceptual scheme will stay intact. We understand concerns raised regarding transportation and servicing infrastructure. These issues were thoroughly reviewed during the conceptual scheme stage and have been documented by the county. They will be carefully considered at each stage of development moving forward. Before each phase of development can proceed, the developer will need to confirm that sufficient servicing capacity is available, the exact alignment and construction details of servicing infrastructure, and the transportation network can support the phase. Additionally, a transportation impact assessment will be required to be updated for each phase of development. Any necessary upgrades identified in the TIA must be completed before that phase can move forward. We thank you for your time and attention, and we are happy now to move on to some questions. We have some commonly asked question and answers here based on what we heard, but I will invite my panel members to unmute and we can get started.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm not seeing any questions right now in the Q&A function, but if there are any questions that are still pending, or if anybody would like to bring a comment forward, you can type that in the Q&A function button, and we're happy to have some time right now and answer any questions that have arose.
Also, if there are any struggles with the Q&A function, please raise your hand and we can unmute you and allow you to speak as well through that format. I will also share some contact information here for you for Tiffany and Assad, as well as our website link. Both Tiffany and Assad can be reached if you have any lingering questions or things you'd like to discuss afterwards. We would be happy to meet folks, provide more information and chat through anything that we felt we didn't cover today.
So there's two questions that have come in, and a couple are more filtering in. So maybe I'll go for the first one. This is from Allison. Considering the green space, by reducing green space or open space on the lots, the neighborhood will or may appear more crowded, and this could further get away from existing look of the areas. Has that been considered?
Thanks, Allison, for the question. Nice to have you all here tonight, and thanks for the questions coming in. It's definitely a good question. By allowing this, it doesn't necessarily mean that those setbacks will be used on every home. It's certainly an opportunity to look at each individual lot and see what house design is most appropriate. We do have quite a bit of extra space on the lots as well. They're not, they're quite a bit smaller than, say, what you'd see in cities. And we do have green spaces. We've got linear pathways and parks throughout, but we appreciate the observation that might feel that way. 1.5 meters is a nice space. There'd be two. You'd have both houses would have at a minimum that dimension. But we certainly want to be able to. We want to offer the opportunity, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all the houses will get to that. Assad, did you want to add anything to that or that comment?
I might just add as well that the lots are significantly deeper than a lot of what would be seen in an urban context or even a lot of other development within the Rocky County area. And so there's that additional more usable open space in the rear yard than would be in the side yard. Assad?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I wanted to say as well, that you know, even though if the the frontage is reducing from 3 to 1.5, the depth is deeper than the lots which you see in the typical urban centers like town of Cochrane or city of Calgary.
Lauren, can we maybe just put the overall plan up just as a reference, so that there's a visual of the development as we go through questions? Perfect.
And the next question is from Tanis. She says, hi, and thank you for the info. I'm wondering how far town water and services will extend.
I'll ask Assad if he could answer that question.
Basically, the water and sewer pipes are coming from Montera. So we will be extending water lines, so water pipes, and also the sewer line from, I'm forgetting the intersection, the exact intersection, but basically from Sheriff Road all the way to Cochrane Lake Road to our community. So both sewer and water line will be coming from there. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Sewer line is going to be actually, it's right at the northwest corner of Cochrane Lake West and Range Road 43. That's where we will tie in to that, right at that intersection, we will tie in with the sewer line. Because from there, the sewer line will go towards Cochrane. So we are, and the water line will go through Sheriff Road to Montera.
And the next one, I'll just move down to the next question. Wondering how the concept of townhomes is considered to be keeping in with the feel of the county living.
Sure. And thank you for that question. Assad, I know we have it allowed within the bylaw, and maybe you're best to answer this question. Do you anticipate townhomes? Are you anticipating more single-family homes? What would your response be to that question?
I think, yeah, we are anticipating in the center area of the Hamlet to have a townhome kind of product. And then that's where we're working on the programming of that, the details of that. That's still, not at this stage. We just got our conceptual scheme approved, recently. So that's our next step, is to do the product planning and all that. But one thing we have focused on is that we want to do a product which is a bit wider than what you see in Cochrane or City of Calgary and other urban centers. Give people a little bit more value, but that was our vision from the start. But we need to now get into details of the product planning. That will be our next step. So yeah.
And this next question is from Carol. Considering the fires in California and fires in general that are happening right now, the concern is about fire hazards with the homes being built closer together. If we're able to speak to that.
Yeah. Assad, did you want to take that one?
No, sure. Go ahead, Lauren. I'll add in if there's something. Yeah, please
Sure.
go ahead.
So our application was circulated to a number of external folks, and one of those was the fire department. And so they noted that they felt any concerns would be mitigated by following the National Building Code, which is quite extensive, and especially in housing formats that are a little bit close together, dictates certain things such as there's no glazing permitted on that side of the wall, or other regulations that would be enforced at the building stage to ensure that any of those risks can be mitigated as much as possible. Did you want to add to that, Assad?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. It's that we will we'll follow all these Rocky View County standards in terms of the housing and all that, and as per their fire codes. And
maybe I would reiterate as well that our amendment only applies to front drive residential product. All of the other product that would be built in, say, with access from a rear lane would already be permitted to have that 1.5 meter setback on both sides. So the proximity in terms of safety is something that is seen quite widely today, and there's a lot of measures in place to mitigate any safety concerns.
And I'll just move along here. And the next question from Karen, I believe this is in relation to possibly the forthcoming public hearing. She's wondering how the 20-minute, the minimum response time, how that is determined and if that's adequate for the proposed development in order to respond to the proposed development.
Yeah, I think that that one's a difficult one for us to answer in terms of how the response time is determined at the municipal level. I know it's a combination of kind of looking at the road networks and also considering the speed at which something could progress. And so that would be a question maybe for administration at the city or for folks at the fire department. Assad, unless you had any further insight into that.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you that we are so the typical situation, the fire response, you need to be within the 10 minutes response time from a fire station in a typical situation. In that scenario, you don't need to put in place any special construction measures in your house for any fire protection. But as soon as you're past that 10 minutes, then you need to, as per the fire codes, have to construct house and use certain material which is approved by the fire codes. So in our case, I think the nearest probably the fire station is the Bearspaw one. So we are definitely outside of 10 minutes, and we will follow the fire codes and all that based on this scenario, and make sure the buildings are properly fire rated and as per the codes, which applies in this situation when a development is outside of 10 minutes.
And I'll just hop to, there's another question regarding fire and servicing. This is from Trina. How many fire hydrants and can Montera Pump House handle a row fire like Fireside had a few years back? So inquiring about number of fire hydrants and capacity.
That's so we have a part of our conceptual scheme. We have done the fire resistance calculations. We have calculated the fire. So Montera water treatment plant has a fire reservoir, and we have that reservoir has enough capacity for us in case if there's a fire. We will be installing the hydrants within this community. Unlike anywhere else in the Cochrane North area structure plan, this community will have hydrants. We will also install a booster station, which basically help to keep the pressure, water pressure appropriate within the community.
And continuing on with servicing, this question is from Andy. Going back to water servicing, how has the assessment been done to ensure no loss in water pressure or service to current Montera residents?
We are, as I mentioned, we are installing our own booster station. So whatever the pressure is coming from Montera, when it arrives to our community, to this project, we have a booster station which will boost the pressure at the appropriate level for our community. So it has no impact to the pressure of Montera community.
And one more about water servicing. This is from Darcy. Is there a plan to upgrade the water treatment plant in Montera? Is the county and developers investing? If so, is the county and developers investing in doing an upgrade?
I mean, at the present moment, the water treatment plant is sufficient for the lands, the projects which are approved at the present moment. I would say Montera Phase 1 and 2, the McDonald Developments lands west of the lake, us in the Hamlet. I think these lands, what this treatment plant is sufficient for all these lands which are presently approved. Obviously, as more development comes in, then a developer submit the application and then also submits the assessment about the treatment plan to how it needs to be upgraded to service his lands. And that's what it will happen if anyone propose a development, has to propose the expansion of this treatment plant as well. But at the present moment, these three projects, Montera lands west of the lake, the McDonald Development lands, and our lands, does not require an upgrade in the water treatment plant.
Okay, and the next question, I'll just jump back to the top of our list. This is from Mackenzie, inquiring about the choice to minimize the setback versus potentially making the lots larger to accommodate more desirable homes or larger homes. If we can speak to the lot sizing.
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. We are, as part of the policy that Lauren had presented early on, we do have a range of units that there are some minimums that we're required to meet, and that came about in the original Hamlet plan. And so our minimum number is 620 units, and our maximum number is, I believe it's 646. Is that correct, Lauren? Yeah, 646. And so we're within that range. We've just started on the first phase. And Mackenzie, I know you've asked if you could see the subdivision plan that's been submitted, so we could share that in a bit. So we're falling within that range. And as Lauren noted, we can't exceed. So certainly, at the end of this, we could be closer to the lower end. It'll just depend on how we design each phase, but we certainly won't exceed the larger number. But we did have a requirement as a minimum number.
Okay, the next question is from Allison, inquiring about the actual build timeline for Neighborhood C, or if we have insight to the build timeline for other neighborhoods as well.
I'll let Assad answer that question. We certainly don't have all the insights of others, but we can give the timing of what we anticipate from start to finish on C.
Yeah, I mean, it's I wish I had a crystal ball. It all depends on the economics and then the market and so many things. But as Kathy mentioned, the subdivision plan A has been submitted. That's our phase 1, which we are moving forward. And our intention is not to go and strip the land and wait for the market or anything like that. We will only strip the land if we know that we have the commitments, and then it is a goal subdivision for development. But if you ask me, typically, based on the present market, I would say that this development could finish in next 7 to 8 years. If the market stays the way it is right now.
And the next question from Bruce is inquiring if there will be fencing between the lots that we had shown in the presentation and existing rural lots, and if so, what would the fencing be being made of, or what type of fencing?
Answer to that is yes, there will be an appropriate fencing. Type of fencing, I don't know at this stage. I think that's something we will probably work with the neighbors, but we are not at that stage yet. We need to work on our architectural control, and through that we will arrive to fencing. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I can say at this moment.
And I will just jumping back to the lot sizing from Martin is inquiring what is the average width of one of the lots that we showed on the example slide.
So our example slide, we used a combination of between 40 and here we go, 40 to 45 feet for single detached housing. And ultimately the width will be determined by the market, but also the overall number of units that are allowable in order to make the development work within that minimum and maximum that Kathy spoke to earlier.
And this one is regarding coordination with the town of Cochrane from Allison. Has there been coordination with the town of Cochrane inquiring due to this many houses being added to the area and consideration of added demand onto Cochrane services, so schools, community services, retail stores?
Lauren, typically when we have conceptual schemes, they do circulate to adjacent municipalities, especially because there was certainly conversations about servicing. At the time, I don't recall there being anything that came from the town of Cochrane in regards to being opposed to the application. Do you have any other further insights? Do you recall from the application from last year?
No, I don't recall them highlighting any specific concerns, especially in relation to resources, as Tiffany mentioned, such as schools and other community services and the pressure that it would put on that. That is something that we, commonly have happen with urban areas and more rural exteriors and how those relationships are worked out, but there was nothing that was flagged from this town at the time of our conceptual scheme application.
Yeah, I mean, just add to that, I remember the town recognized that, that this Hamlet plan and the Cochrane North area structure plan has been approved, and this application is moving forward in compliance with that plan, which was approved in the past. Yeah, so I think that's one of the things they recognized it, that it's that it was approved in the past, and then now it's been, detailed plan is being done.
And maybe I'll move on. There are a couple questions coming in regarding traffic. This is from Niquiline. Apologies if I'm saying your name wrong. Someone had mentioned traffic studies will be accomplished at each phase. They're concerned about this clarifying concerns in regards to increased traffic volumes and being an adequate way to mitigate traffic volumes. As there's been an increase since the closing of Range Road 43 at the 22 highway, which is already a safety concern.
Yeah, I can start on that one maybe, and Assad can jump in because I'm not an engineer, but so we did a transportation impact assessment at the time of the conceptual scheme, and I saw another comment or question in the group, which was how can we access copies of that assessment? It is available on our website, and so we can put the more direct link in the chat at the end of this. But at the time that we did the assessment, we did account for that closure of Range Road 43 and Highway 22 and the impacts that would result from that. We also took accounted for adjacent development in the background numbers, and so yeah, as mentioned, it will be updated at each phase of the development, and more current and accurate information regarding the movement of traffic at that time will be applied and considered to ensure that everything is done in a way that is safe and that is not risking any of the existing infrastructure and travelers on those roads. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Assad?
No, that's very, yeah, it's very yeah, like I mean, as you mentioned, that we have done the traffic impact assessment based on this full is this full for the complete full build out of this project. I you know, the participants are most welcome to look at the transportation master plan for this area. It will show that there's a traffic lights anticipated on at the Highway 22 and Cochrane Lake Road. And then that should happen based on the transportation impact assessment. So every time when we submit a subdivision plan, so there's a master transportation impact assessment done with this full build out of this project. But now with every subdivision, when we submit, we have to submit an assessment, transportation assessment, which will cover a Range Road 43, Cochrane Lake Road, Highway 22, and other roads in the area to confirm if those roads needs to be widened or not. So, and those and then so the widening will be done with that subdivision, which is being submitted for approval.
Okay. So another question from Kelly has come in. How close can the development go to the gas plant?
We are still quite a ways away. I mean, we are only 800 meters from, you know, our south boundary is approximately, I'll say about 600 to 750 meters from Cochrane Lake West. So we are not in any of the zone of that plant. That's why the planning the way it's been done in the Hamlet plan. So we quite a ways away from the gas plant, which is more so close to city of Cochrane, town of Cochrane. But there's no impact of that plant on the zoning of this area.
The next question is from Tanis. Is there one builder for development, or will this area be up for tender?
There will be few builders because there are different type of product here.
And this is from Karen, circling back to the fire regulations. Assuming that the city of Calgary complies with fire regulations, we see multiple houses being involved when one house begins burning. Will the regulations for Rocky View County be more strict than the city of Calgary's? And how much experience does Rocky View County Fire Service have with firefighting for row housing developments?
I mean, yeah, I can't speak behalf of them. I mean, I think that's a question maybe they need to ask how experienced they are, and you know, in terms of you know, dealing with the developments. I mean, the Rocky View is here. Their fire department is here for many years. They handle high density developments as well. You know, Langdon is quite high density. You know, Balzac is quite sophisticated as well, which they are handling. So they are managing some very high density and very complicated, sophisticated developments in Rocky View County. You know, I would actually say that they are probably more experienced than some other municipalities like Calgary, because Rocky View County deals with different type of developments and structures and all that. So they have to be, you know, more ready for different type of unexpected incidents than I probably will say for City of Calgary.
I might just add to that, because Assad, you noted in your last response something that I found interesting, and that is that in the city, because the fire response time is shorter, the requirements for the built form and other measures to mitigate risk are actually lower, whereas in an area like Rocky View County, to kind of counteract some of that longer response time, there's much more stringent requirements on the built form. And so that was something that was new to me. So I just thought I would reiterate that as well.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Much better than me, actually.
And another question is regarding phasing. This is from anonymous attendee. If phase 1 is in the northeast corner, inquiring where the phase 2 and subsequent location phases will be.
I mean, I would say that it's, I think phase 1 will give us good information about the demands and market demand, and I think based on that we will look at what will be our phase 2. Typically your phase 2 is right beside phase 1. It's not going to be all the way in the south or somewhere else. So you're extending the utilities and connecting it, so it will be right beside the phase 1. The size of that phase, I don't know at this stage. It's all depend on the how quickly the builders consume the land, the lots in phase 1, and what is the market demand.
And I'm just going to pop up to the top of the list again. This may have been answered in the question regarding tenders, but the question is this slated to be developed by Canopy or is it being sold as shovel ready? We have seen the land for sale on another website.
Yeah, I mean, it's we are interested in being in the market for either a partner or for a sale of the land, and that's in our industry. It's very common. It's a very normal process: buying land, selling land, developing lands, partnering with land. All these things, these are part of our business, and it's very normal happening in this case. So we are. I'm going to be very upfront. Yes, we are interested in looking for a partner, and we have some group who's looking into it with us. And the way it goes, details, and then what we're still at the stage nothing is finalized, and if so if it happens, we'll let the residents know. But at this stage, it's still at the nothing is deal hasn't any nailed down or anything like that. Sorry,
Thank you. And this is going back to transportation again. During development, how much will the existing roads be impacted? Existing residents currently use one road as 262 isn't suitable or isn't used quite as commonly. So how much will existing roads be impacted?
I mean, typically, like the typical process is that we before the launch of the construction of a subdivision plan we come up with a transportation construction plan, and the construction plan deals with the existing traffic, making sure that the existing traffic is moving, and then while the construction is happening. And if you're blocking one road, then you make sure the other road is open from where the people can leave. So those are the things. These kind of construction plans will be created at the construction stage.
And I will go down. There's some more that have come in about servicing. So Paul has asked about how will this development contribute to maintenance cost and the overall load impact or life cycle of the a water system.
Basically, when you connect to the water system in Rocky View County, you pay a connection fee. So there is a connection fee which we will be paying per lot, as the lot connects to the system in Montera. That's how that money will go to Rocky V County to maintain that existing infrastructure.
And then I think also as the community develops out and the increase in property tax would in part also go towards the maintenance of infrastructure such as that.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking through the questions again. Martin is wondering if the fire station in Cochrane would be the first response as it's within 10 minutes.
The one in Cochrane actually is not within the 10 minutes. Actually, I just came to know recently that even the north portion of Sunset Ridge is not within the 10 minutes response time of fire station in town of Cochrane. So they will be probably will be asked to follow the codes as well, the way we would be following, to address that they are also outside of the 10 minutes response plan. Now, they call it, what's the terminology actually? They are, I think there's an agreement in place between town of Cochrane and Rocky V County that anytime if if Rocky View calls for help, assistance, then the town of Cochrane will send their trucks to the site. There's a word for that they use, but that's the agreement they have in place that anytime. But if someone dialed 911 in Rocky V County in this area, it will go to the Rocky V County base. And from there, they will make a decision whether it will be a Bear Spa fire station or town of Cochrane's fire station will respond. So they, yeah. So I mean, so right now, Rocky V County has an agreement with town of Cochrane to respond in case if there's an emergency.
My understanding as well that Cochrane is trying to secure a fire station site within Sunset Ridge, so that's ongoing conversations as well.
Yeah, actually, to that point, Kathy, good point you brought up. We are engaged with the town of Cochrane to look at an opportunity where that fire station service this area as well, and I think that should be benefit not just for this development, but for this whole ASP in that case.
And we've had two questions come in. Given the increased population, projected increase of population, are there plans for additional entrances, and exits in this plan area? Currently, it's being understood that there's only one way in, one way out to the plan area.
Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Assad.
No. I want you qualified planners to understand.
No, the plan in front of us shows a number of access points,
Yeah.
and there are that comes back to just fire restrictions as well. There's a number of homes that you can have and you need additional access points. And certainly, as Assad had noted, there will be some phasing and timing, and there could be a point where connections have to be made, even if the houses aren't directly adjacent, just to accommodate the requirements for access locations. So at the end of the day, this does have 4 dedicated locations that do come out onto 2 roads, certainly Range Road 43 and Cochrane Lake West. And there's also the shadow plan area to the south that will add an additional location at some point in the future. So there are a number of access points that are within this approved plan.
And moving back to some more questions around water servicing. With the water supply calculations, have they taken into consideration supplying water to the existing hamlet of Cochrane Lake?
We have not included in our calculations, but in terms of when we did the capacity calculation for the water, we did include the old hamlet into that, and the old, based on our calculation, the old hamlet can be serviced with a pipe. And I think there's opportunity for them when McDonald development on the west side of lake, when they extend the pipe. I think there's opportunity for the existing hamlet to tie into that pipe.
And one more question for servicing. This is from Anonymous. Thank you for the session. And is there any update on servicing and utility master plan?
Update or utility? I'm not sure which master plan is referring. Now we are working with the town of Rocky County to detail. They requested us to provide some details of more details about servicing than what we have provided in the past. So we are working on providing more detail. I mean, you can call that as a master plan. So we are working through that, and we are anticipating completing sometimes February, March.
In terms of the studies that were done in support of the conceptual scheme, they haven't been formally updated or revised, and so what's available on the website is the most current, if that also answers the question in any way.
Yeah.
And we have one hand up. This is from Tanis. So Tanis, I will just unmute you and feel free to ask your question to the group here.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So my question was just a follow-up to the one in, one out. You answered it, but my question was more so to the one in, one out traffic situation to 22. So obviously we know the neighborhood will have more ins and outs of the area, but it's more access to Highway 22.
Asad, do you have an answer to that one? I know it's the greater network that we're talking about. So thanks for that clarification, Tanis.
Yeah, sorry. So Tanis, can you repeat your question, or the question again, please? In what context you were asking about Highway 22? Sorry.
Sure. So you're coming in so your development has one way in, one way out right now, but you have processes for others. My question is that Cochrane Lake West is the road. So now there is several developments all coming in on Cochrane Lake West with access to 22. That is our only access for all of those developments. So Cochrane Lake Hamlet, your development, other developments. So my question is, are there any other, I guess, plans or developments for other, like now that it's closed on the south end, which we understand, but access to 22, because that's where all major services will come from.
Yeah. So at the present moment, I mean, the range road 43 to 22 is closed, but the access from Range Road 43 to Horse Creek is open. So that's one access as well in the south. If someone wants to go, you can go from 43 to Horse Creek Road at the present moment. So that access is, I agree with you, the major access right now is Cochrane Lake West to 22. But there's another access, knowing even though the 43 is close to 22, you can go west as you're going now south on 43. You can go west on 260. I can't remember now what's the name of that street, 260 or 262 or something, and that will take you to Horse Creek. So that's I consider a minor access. Now, when McDonald Development moves forward on his plan, they will also open up another access to Range Road 43 south of the lake. So, and that 43 will go to Whedon, and from Whedon, you can go to 22 as well that way. So there's, there's that, and also once the Montera main collector roads opens up in the north, that also will have an access to Highway 22 as well that way. Sorry, I wish if I had a plan I can show you that. But these are so two access are available. One major access is Cochrane Lake Road, and the second one is going south on Range Road 43 to Horse Creek. And in the near future, the McDonald development should have an access going north, as another option too. So I hope I've answered your question.
Okay, I will move on to the next question. There was a question brought up about schools, with the proposed increase in residents and implications for additional school buses. Has the plan contemplated space for a school? And can you speak to that?
Thanks for that question. As part of the conceptual scheme review, that's one of the stakeholders that gets a chance to review the application and see how that weighs in with their catchment areas and school numbers and busing. There are some regulations that we have related to cross sections of roads and the maneuverability. You'll notice that some roads were well connected so that they're bus routes that can be established within the community if needed. We also were not advised by the school boards during our application that this site required a school site. So that means they have allocated, we run population numbers, and there's estimates that they take on number of kids that would be living in these homes. And they would feel either they've got a school existing in the area or a future one that could accommodate students. And so when we did the conceptual scheme, if they identified this site, we would have identified it at that point and had it put into the conceptual scheme plan and approved through land use at that time. So it did get reviewed, but it's not, it wasn't required.
Just before we jump into the next one, I'm just going to flag that it is 7, which we had planned to go from 6 till 7. There's still some questions in the chat. I think we will plan to go for another 15 minutes or so, and hopefully we'll be able to address those final questions. But for any folks who have to hop off, the recording will be posted on the website if you feel that you've missed anything.
We'll flip through a couple of them. I'll go a little bit quicker here, Tiffany, because I've just
go ahead.
There's a question here asking, what is a shadow plan? So the shadow plan area that you'll see in the bottom portion of the plan is an area that's contained within community C, but is not owned by our ownership group. And so through the conceptual scheme process, we the lead on the conceptual scheme, of course, was a sod. And what we're required to do was provide road access to be able to show where the roads would come in and how it would develop, and that our plan would not negatively affect that area. That area was accommodated with all the density allocations to meet the plan similar to us. And so they will be a future development to come. Another question we had was, if you sell the land, and certainly Assad had talked about it a little bit earlier, how do we know you'll fulfill the promises that you've made? These documents have all been approved by council. So these are, to make any significant changes to this, they would have to apply for an application, go through an application process, a public hearing, and have council revise the plan, do amended plans. And so what you're seeing here is that framework for development. And as Assad said, you'll see it in many phases to come. And right at the very end, I'll share the subdivision plan when we're done with this presentation here. That gives you an indication of that first plan. But this is the framework that needs to be followed. And as each subdivision comes in, it follows the same framework. So that gives that assurance. And I'm just trying to see what other... There was another comment, additional comments related to fire. We do have all of these that we capture at the end of this virtual session, and we're going to share all those comments with administration. All the ones that you've asked about, are they, you know, do they utilize Cochrane? Do they have the skills? You know, are there assurances? We're going to share those just so that administration sees the comments that were raised and the concerns that you have related to fire. So we're going to share that at the end of this. And I'm just seeing if we're getting closer to answering all of them. I'm just going to ask this question of Assad. Does the TIA take into consideration the access for the interpipe gas site, both in normal operation plus during maintenance outages, when additional contract workers and equipments need to access the gas site? I'm assuming that would be part of the city or the town's review or the county's review when they looked at this. Do you have any other insights on that?
No, I mean, I mean, again, I'm trying to remember, picture, like, I think they're, I mean, I don't know if they have a direct access to Horse Creek Road. They are probably coming to Cochrane Lake Road and out to Highway 22. I'm assuming that when the Range Road 43 to Highway 22 was closed, their situation was evaluated, and then based on, I don't know, oil and gas standards or something like that, and then was considered to be that it is satisfactory. I wonder, I'm forgetting, sorry, that whether they can connect to the road which goes to the Horse Creek in the south. My feeling is they are not. They are all coming to Cochrane Lake Road.
And I appreciate there's lots of questions about the access and concerns and, this development. We're going to share those comments as well with administration. They did a thorough examination as part of the conceptual scheme to conclude that they were recommending it for approval back early last year, but we'll share those additional concerns. They look at transportation holistically, and at the time felt comfortable with that. So, but we'll share those just so that they have additional comments. When do you plan to break the soil, Assad? What is the thought you've got with the subdivision, and there's lots of work that gets done? What's the anticipated timing?
Yeah, I mean, if everything fall in place, it could be in 2025, as early as 2025, I would say. It could be. I mean, if we get all the approvals and subdivision plan and all that in place.
Yeah. I just want to follow up on the commitments. I talked about the commitments with the council approved reports, but Assad, there was some additional commitments that were made to some of the adjacent residents. That was the question that actually I missed that intent. There was some commitments that you made, especially with adjacent owners. Do you want to comment how those are the ones that there's concern if this land gets sold? How will those be fulfilled?
Yeah, and then I can tell you, like, I can share with all of you. I had actually a coffee with one of the neighbors today, actually, and I mentioned that if there's a sale happens, then I will make sure that I'll sit down with the new owner and with the neighbors, and we go over all those commitments which we have agreed together. So it will not be a surprise to the neighbors with whom we have commitments in this case.
Thanks for that. We've had a request to put the website in the chat, so we've already done that. We've already added that to the chat. I'm trying to get
not yet.
before we hit 7:15.
2 seconds.
Lauren has us finished. So there was a question about, we didn't talk about water quality. We talked about capacity in Montera, and they feel they already have issues. So with more homes, it puts more demand on processing of clean water. Can you speak to whether that was part of the assessment in the original application, Assad?
Yeah, I mean, I like to actually the person who made this comment, the question. I understand that the previous owners, there were some challenges, but now Rocky V County has taken over this utility, and we actually led that process with the Rocky V County. We put a significant capital in this utility, invested with Rocky V County to take over these utilities from a private operator. So I hope that now it's actually running much better than it was before. I had a few people came to me from Montera asking that we have, we have a concern about this, so it was a collaborative efforts with the Montera and us, but we put a capital in with the Rocky View County, and then they took over. So I'm hoping that the comment, which is concern and the quality, was based on the previous operator, not in regards to the performance of Rocky View County. If it is, then let's talk about it. You have my email address here. I'm just gonna quickly mention that during the conceptual scheme planning, I met with a lot of people in person in their houses during the planning process. So you have this email address, you can email it to me. I can come and see you guys. And if you have any other question comes up or you need further details, I'll be more than happy to meet in person and provide response yeah.
Awesome. We have one last question sitting in the queue. It's also one that we'll share with administration. 262 is not currently paved, and depending on the weather, is not able to handle the weight of some of the vehicles servicing the gas plant. And so we will identify that as well to Rocky View. And then very last one came in. Why were so many people in the area left out of the legislated hearing notice? I can't speak to exactly what administration does as far as circulations. That would be better suited to be asked of them. We made sure for this invite tonight, we were far reaching in our mail out, just to try and capture as many of you as possible in vicinity of the site. So not quite sure what their legislative distance is. I know in the city of Calgary, it's usually if you touch the property, and then they tend to have it as a smaller radius, but sorry, I can't answer that on the exact. Lauren, do you know what their legislative?
I am under the impression, I believe it's 1 kilometer radius, but I would have to confirm. And we did do a similar mail out and post signage at the time of the conceptual scheme for our open house, which would have happened almost a year prior to the public hearing. But yeah, I'm not positive about the circulation from the administration side.
Okay. Since Montera pays HOA fees, how does this plan to support our current community as people within the new community will be using our facilities and access to the lake? Are you able to have any comment on that one, Assad?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Sure. Montera pays HOA fees. So how does this plan to support our current community as people within the new community will be using our facilities and access to the lake? Is that true that there would be access, or would that be exclusively for?
So the lake is owned by the Alberta government, the province. It's not a lake. It's not a Montera owned lake. It's a lake. It's a public use open lake, and the access. There's no access right now around the lake. It's you have a Range Road 43 which goes north and ends at the point. So yeah, I'm not sure how I like there's other details which we are working with McDonald Development and Rocky View for the lake improvement. There's a plan which is we are working through to create a better lake in terms of water quality and all that. So there's that work being done, but in terms of the lake amenity, it's open lake. It's not like Harmony or some of the closed lakes owned by the community. This is owned by the province.
I might add as well that the Neighbourhood C community was planned to have some pretty significant open spaces and parks for the future residents of that community. And so the intent is that those new residents would be able to utilize those open spaces, and there wouldn't be the need to travel to another different separate established community and to utilize their parks and open spaces. It would also be dependent upon the way that the Montera HOA is set up and which parts of the community services in that area are publicly accessible versus privately owned and not publicly accessible, which I'm not familiar with, but would be a good question to ask maybe the representative of the HOA of that community.
Appreciate the comment. We had clarification on that it was the walking paths and the lighting around the water.
Okay.
Yeah, that came in while you're talking. And one last question, we'll do this and then I'll share the subdivision plan. Another comment about transportation infrastructure and that it's not addressing. It's certainly one we'll share with administration. As we noted, it was reviewed as part of the conceptual scheme at the time. So we will we'll share this. We're going through the next phases post conceptual scheme approval, but appreciate the feedback that we're receiving tonight. So I'm going to share. So thank you for your questions. I'll probably pass it over to Lauren in a second. I'm going to share just quickly I promised the subdivision plan. And we'll see if I can actually, here, I'll pop this up here. And this will be the last bit. Are you able to see my screen?
It's just loading up. There we
Okay.
go.
Hopefully you don't see my other notes. So this is the first phase. You'll see that there's a couple different product types. It's up in that northeast corner as described by Assad. And the plan is to typically you'll attach to this phase with future phases. I'm not certain. Do you know what the total count is on this one, Assad, the first phase? How many units?
It's about including the just the lots itself. I think it's 254.
Okay.
The residential lots.
Yep, there's also a park that's being dedicated, and you can see that we've got a pond that sits in the northwest corner. So that is the first phase, and that's sitting with the municipality now. And I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to pass it back over to Lauren to do closing remarks.
Sure. I am just going to share the final screen. I have some QR codes here for anybody who is interested in reviewing the Hamlet plan or the Neighborhood C conceptual scheme. We just want to thank you again for your time and your attention. The contact information for both Assad and for representative of BNA is also on the website with a lot of other information available for review, and will be accessible to answer questions and have further discussions up until the next time that we meet. So thank you very much all for your time. I hope you have a lovely evening, and we will sign off now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.